Pre-recorded live and broadcasting from their undisclosed location in the Bremerton suburbs, Sam Kramer.
You think I'm a hipster. I just appreciate good things.
Mark Boutte.
Break music here for thee.
Two geeks on a quest to hear themselves talk as often as possible. This is the Gaming Disquisition.
The Gaming Disquisition with Sam and Mark for Sunday, July 21st, 2013, and show number 57 is Go. I am Sam.
I am Mark.
This is the Disquisition.
And I hate your hat.
My hat?
I hate your hat.
I don't have a hat.
Well, not right now.
Well, okay, but which hat are you talking about?
I'm talking about the ephemeral hat, the hat that exists in all of us.
Oh, that's...
Well, not necessarily
that's hardly
all of us.
my hat, then.
Well, no, just this in this specific instance, I do hate your ephemeral hat.
Oh, well, that's kind of a shame. I guess I can wear a normal hat and maybe you won't see it?
That's actually possible. I mean, the hat you're wearing will mask the essence of the hat of your soul.
What are you talking about?
Do I have to have a reason for everything?
Okay, fine.
Right. Just deal with the fact that I hate your hat and move on.
Okay, I'm just wondering if you're making some sort of like TV reference that I don't know, because that happens all the time.
Well, I'm making a reference, just nothing I can talk about on the podcast.
Oh, well done.
There's a small select few who will get this reference and will laugh. And
the rest of you can...
This is a family show.
Evidently. So, how you doing, Mark?
Oh, living the dream. I've actually been kind of busy this week.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I saw a couple movies, namely Pacific Rim and R.I.P.D.
That's so busy.
Well, and playing some games.
Oh, okay.
Actually playing games is something I've been trying to do. As a matter of fact, because of the Steam Garage sale, I managed to pick up a few things. I got Dishonored, but haven't actually started it yet because it was like under $10. Torchlight 2 was like $2.50, so yeah. Let's see. I finally got Bastion.
Okay.
Because that was super cheap. But what I actually started...
So the running like commonality that all these games are was they were all cheap, so...
Well, yeah, I mean, except for the fact that the one game that I was actually really looking forward to playing, which was also on sale, was Penny Arcade's On the Rain-Slick Precipice of Darkness Episode 4.
Okay.
Which I'm having a grand old time with.
Man, they really ruined the 3-act play, didn't they? You can't have a 4-act play.
Actually,
there's no crying in baseball.
It's actually working out pretty well. They've done some really interesting things with it. I mean, it's made by Zeboyd Games, which is the same one who made the third game, so it's got the pixel art. It's kind of taking directly from the third one in the art direction, everything. The music, actually, as a matter of fact, is really, really good. I love going into battles because the battle theme is by far my favorite song.
Man, I'll have to listen to that on YouTube.
Yeah, or just get the game.
But why? It's on YouTube for free.
It's just cheap and good. But it's interesting the way that they changed it up a little bit. They kept a lot of the core mechanics. Like, for example, there are no random battles. The battles are all like, you walk up to the enemy in the field and you get into a fight, etc.
Like Fifamuk. Yeah, Fifamuk.
Mystic Quest?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, kind of.
Fmuk.
Yeah, oh, well.
That's a great name. That should have been how we pronounced that.
It's some sort of weird, like, Inuit word for,
of course,
subpar game.
Of course, in Japan it was called Fusa.
Right. Yes.
Because, apparently, we made it for Americans because they're dumb.
Yes, Final Fantasy USA. But no, they changed up a little bit in the fact that you're no longer just leveling up your characters. Like, you have the main characters of the story, but they're not the primary thing you're using. You're actually collecting, well, basically monsters.
Pokemon!
Yep, and you're collecting them in a Monstorb, which is kind of odd, and all of the different things you're getting, you're not just, because there are no random battles, you're not just going out and, trying to find this one thing and then battling until you get it. They generally just give them to you as the story progresses. But, I have the Brodent, I have the Philosophomoth, I have Twisp and Catsby, I have the Merch, I have a Fruit Friend.
Okay.
Friend. Yes.
Yes. I take your meaning.
Good. But you collect them and you equip them with weapons and accessories, but you also equip a trainer to them. depending on what trainer you have equipped to them, they gain different stats as they level. For example, like when Gabe is equipped onto one of these things, or when Gabe is the primary trainer for one of these things, they gain like +4 strength and +4 defense every time they level. Whereas like equipped with Moira, it's like +2 speed and +3 magic defense or something like that. And they also have passive bonuses that whatever creatures are attached to them get like special things just because they're the trainer at the time. So like if Gabe's on one of them, then they get like a strength boost on the first turn.
So with all this going on, and the fact that the game is both linear and evidently, from what you described, finite. Do you have to choose which ones level?
Actually, no. All of them level at the same time. Okay. So even the ones that aren't in your party are leveling when you're fighting. They stuck with the same kind of battle scenario where like everyone gains experience at the same rate. Everyone, everyone in the party, has the items that are finite use per battle. Basically the same basic thing. They gain 1 MP per round, except for special battle conditions which pop up from time to time.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting out of this is that it seems to I wonder kind of.
There is a Coliseum in the game. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I know that there's one where kind of like they did in episode 3, where if you need to go level up, there's like a Coliseum of infinitely spawning bad guys of various strength.
Why did they ruin it?
You see, I didn't even know that existed in the third one until after I had beaten the main storyline.
Like they had this fixed. They had this, this is the challenge before you, and like we can tighten it and like make sure that it's as rigid as possible.
I'm not sure, but I think it's available after you've beaten the game. Like you can go, because one of the things about episode 3 was that there was DLC. Which I don't remember what it was called, but they included something that would basically only be usable at max level, and the only way to get to max level was to basically grind in the Coliseum until all of all the different jobs were all at the maximum level, and then you could go in and unlock this this extra storyline bit.
So how about we just give that to you?
Yeah, I was a little, I was a little irritated, but honestly, it's not such a deal breaker for me that I didn't actually do it. But point is that it's a decent. If you enjoyed the third one, you'll enjoy the fourth one. The storyline is still continuing and still continues to be ridiculous, if not more so. But the gameplay is just as tight, and each combat still feels like its own individual puzzle to be solved. So that kind of feeling still exists.
Okay, fair enough.
Aside from that, yeah, I did start playing this game. It's absolutely astounding and amazing.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, although I have to admit, I was a little worried when I started playing it that my friends wouldn't be seeing much of me.
Oh, did you do the thing that you should not have done?
I played Wartune.
You played Wartune?
Yeah, actually.
What was that like?
Oh, man.
Did you have an orgy yesterday?
The game is basically a browser MMO / town building / Farmville
/ Vampire Diaries / Hunger Games.
Well, no, okay. Basically you start out as a male or female warrior, mage, or archer.
I thought there was no females allowed.
Right. Yes. And you go in and you click around. Now, the fun thing is you have a quest log like you would in World of Warcraft, except there's this handy button that says move to next quest target. So you just click it and it moves for you. You then get into a combat with a monster. All combat is basically automated, except for like you're always on auto attack, except that you can click like a special ability to use it. Like if you want to speed up combat, and there's like a rage meter, so the more damage you're dealing, the more points you have to spend on more abilities or whatever. And there's a leveling mechanic, and then when you get to the town, you get to start building it up and building it up and building it up, and you get
grinding and grinding and grinding.
Pretty much, but so much of it is automated, and they're constantly giving you little gifts and stuff. Like there's a gift countdown, like a little chest in the upper left-hand corner. Every like 15 to 20 minutes, you just click the chest and it gives you stuff.
But you have to click it.
Yes.
And if you're like, if you're not around at the time, like, you have to like get back in to click it to reset the counter.
Oh, not only that.
Oh, that's brilliant.
They have a login thing. Like every time, if you log in multiple times over one day, they give you more stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course there is a store you can go and buy, and you get this like other type of like in-game currency, which you can then spend on ridiculous BS. And
so, when I was talking about about how games can, like, encourage particular behaviors and, like, be able to make you feel particular things. This isn't what I was talking about, is like encouraging the behavior of spending money.
Right. Although I have to admit, I played it for about an hour. And during that hour, I was just like, okay, click, okay, click, okay, click, okay, okay, okay. Like,
what do you, Ness and Smash Brothers? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty much. I felt like I was just clicking through menus. Like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I did that. Oh, I completed that quest. Oh, I completed that quest. Oh, I completed that quest. And everything just kind of like flowed like that. But there is absolutely nothing in this game to warrant higher than a teen rating.
I didn't think so.
Nothing. I mean, I'm of course playing a female wizard, I guess, or mage, or whatever it is, and the scantily clad main character that I'm running around with hasn't done anything interesting. I mean, it's like you're running around and they talk. There's a storyline of all things. And
I'm sure there is. There's got to be a storyline.
I'll admit that the graphics are like maybe mid PS2 era. Like for like the sprites and stuff. I have to admit some of the sprites are actually decent looking, and the art direction is very anime, very very stylized and all that. But it's not unpleasant to look at. And I'm not saying
sure not.
Like, I'm not saying scantily clad women. I'm saying specifically, but like the art style of the monsters, the town, the areas. It reminded me of like almost like Titan Quest in the level of graphic detail that there was in just the surrounding territories.
Yeah.
So I mean, the game doesn't look bad, but it does not deserve any of the hype at all that its advertisement gives.
Yeah, no, like I
might assume that like at level 30 or something, suddenly everyone takes their clothes off and the game just goes into crazy orgy mode. And then
at level 40, like, everybody becomes Sub-Zero and, like, becomes the survival.
Exactly. I have no idea what they were going for saying that the game had this adults-only rating, because, like I said, nothing at all so far points at that at all.
I knew that would be the case. Like, as soon as I was at the website, because I was interested to see, like, what kind of a game is this that warrants AO? Like, what are we talking about here? And then when I couldn't find an actual ESRB rating on the website, like, I just totally disbelieved the whole, like, rating in the first place.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I played that for about an hour or so. And, it wasn't... Okay, I've played worse games, which is unfortunate. But, there was no puzzle to it. A game will play itself.
You've liked worse games.
Yes. Click on whatever is shiny and you'll win. And there is player versus player. There's a game that it reminds me of. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It's like a town building game. People got really and people are still really into it. Everyone has their own little town that they build up, and then they can like take territory from other players. And
I can think of many, many, many browser-based games that did that.
Okay, yeah, same basic principle, and like you can teleport your town around the map. And like,
weird!
It's a battle for resources. Like a gold mine will be there, and you can go and attack and take over the gold mine. And if another player has it, you can steal it from them. And like, you're limited to how many times you can attack another player's settlement per day, unless you pay, of course. And there's like little, the game is just it's ridiculously complicated and yet so overly simplistic that you can play the game by clicking anything that is shiny and just going on and
everything is rewarding. And man, like that Euro, that GDC Europe, like he would have been really proud of him.
Yeah, it constantly rewarding you with level ups and free stuff and new equipment without actually having to go through any effort to do it. And like there are instances, kind of. But it's just kind of, like I said, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah,
but
it's about what I expected.
But yeah, don't go into it thinking you're going to see this amazing, like, oh man, this game is adults only. It's going to be so sick. Nah, it's teen.
There's only going to be males there, and they're all going to be having an orgy.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
So yeah, there's that game, and hopefully that assuages everybody's curiosity.
Mm-hmm. How about you? I mean, now that I've taken up all your time.
Pretty much you have. But, like one of the things I have been doing actually is...
Dark Souls?
No. Well, yes, but I mean, like not primarily. Actually, one of the biggest things I did this week... so I run the D&D game online. I use Map Tool to do it. By the way, anybody who's running a D&D game online and wants a play space, Map Tool is the one you want. Unless you've already found something else cool. I have found...
It's the one you want unless you found something better.
I know. Like, I have heard some people talking about some browser-based ones that seem fairly reasonable. I just don't know if they are quite as feature rich as Map Tool is. I haven't tried them.
I'm still looking to see if Pathfinder is going to release the Pathfinder map tools, or if they have already. I just haven't noticed.
I would imagine that they're still going to do it. But I was working with Map Tool, and I basically just went through all my players' macros and just audited them to make sure that they were doing what they were, advertised to do.
Yeah.
Found a few errors, found a few mistakes, and
always roll 20s. Always roll 20s.
No, none of that. Actually, most of the mistakes were to the player's detriment. So, so I had to fix those, and I have activated some really awesome functionality of Map Tool, like the ability for me to have tokens that they can't see the macros of or the stats of or anything along those lines. Because before I was having just everybody just owns all tokens and just move them however, but like now that I've turned that off. Now I can actually make macros that do really cool and complicated things without them seeing even what's going on underneath the hood. And then there's also the I fixed the initiative macro to not only take a look at the initiative stat built into the character, but also to insert them into the initiative order with that initiative number.
Oh, nice!
All in one go. There's a button that they can click to subtract or add hit points to themselves, which automatically makes them bloodied or not bloodied as appropriate. Just like all sorts of really cool functionality that I'm learning all sorts of cool tricks to make that work.
Well, that's neat.
Like the ability to there's a case select. I was so pleased when I realized there's a case select available in the code, so that now I can roll on a table and have it tell me what happened rather than the number that I rolled, and then me look it up on the table.
Nice.
So really cool stuff going on, and I did all that and
spreadsheets.
Well, actually, less to do with spreadsheets. Although I do still use spreadsheets for hit point tracking because I don't want to use I don't want to use Map Tool for that for whatever reason. I don't know. I just have this thing that I'd like to be able to have that totally separate. So, oh well. So I did that all week, and I'm really happy with that, and hopefully everybody else will be happy with all the work I've done and not just say, oh.
Maybe if you have a way of saving your settings or something like that, maybe make it available so that other people, if they wanted to use map tools and maybe see how you do that. Yeah.
Actually, there are people that have formalized the entire 4th edition game setting and mechanics into a single downloadable thing.
Oh, handy.
And so you can if you want to, you can use Map Tool for character generation and put your and put the powers into your character's macros. And if you point to the powers, there's a tooltip that looks exactly like a power card with the colors and everything, and it's intense.
Really cool. People with a lot of time on their hands who really care about the output. Yeah.
So yeah, I have thought about doing that, but I don't know. I there is some joy in doing it on my own because I used to be a programmer and still am in some ways. So being able to make all that stuff is pretty fun.
I'll have to admit, 9 times out of 10, every time I'm looking at a wall of code, I get really confused and start wondering what really is going on.
Well, this is the Gaming Disquisition, where we go head-to-head on topics important to everyone.
Gaming culture.
We tell it like it is.
Subjectively.
And it all ends up with us saving the world.
Like we've been doing since we first picked up a controller.
Right you are, but controller time is stop. And
controller time is stop.
And the mail time is go. The mailbag time. The twit-faced mailbag of holding.
Plus.
Yes. Plus.
It's a mailbag of devouring.
It really is. Because we haven't been able to find anything in there lately.
No, there's things. We like things.
So if you'd like to get a hold of us in our Twitface Mail Plus, you can get a hold of us in the email at gamingdisquisition@gmail.com.
You, of course, can reach us on Facebook, facebook.com/thegamingdisquisition, or just search for us on Google+.
Get a hold of us on Twitter at DisquisitorSam.
At DisquisitorMark.
On Twitter.
Tweet.
There's a little thing on the bottom of my Evernote down now that I updated it, and it's not necessary. I don't want it there anymore.
What's it telling you?
It just has a little
share
alarm clock
favorite type thing.
Yeah, share star.
Mine's at the top.
Yeah, I have something at the top too. It's just I'm just cutting down my available space. I don't like it.
Well, I think you can make it go away.
Probably. I just don't want to do that right now.
I suppose, but you're going to mention it, so we'll just, yeah.
So anyway, Suzanne on the Facebook writes, I found...
Visual reference on an audio podcast.
I described it thoroughly. I found Joy's input about character building and authorial intent to be interesting, but I feel like the drive of the video was entirely ignored in favor of what I feel is comparatively a minor point. Not by Joy specifically, but the theme of the discussion. By all means, let's discuss writing and intent, but can we do it without erasure of topics that already face a lot of censure and ridicule in gaming culture? That's from Suzanne. I don't think that we necessarily ignored that topic. I think that the whole thing is all one. I guess the reason why I wanted to cover it that way, and the reason why Joy was bringing up the points that she did, and we all just talked about that, I felt was that like it kind of helps that entire venture in the first place. Like if you're going to cover that sort of topic in your game, like writing well will help you to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's one thing that I thought was really strangely absent from the whole talk. Is like it was almost as though we were ignoring how to write well in favor of like fulfilling these moral imperatives, and that's not really.
You can fulfill a moral imperative by writing well.
Yes, exactly. And so that's what I really hoped to cover, was just like things that people weren't talking about because people seemed too busy patting themselves on the back.
I do have to at least admit that, we are the second half of our show generally being around a 45-minute time isn't enough to cover things as in-depth as sometimes we would like to, which is why we do push for, some conversation on the Facebook, or, if you want to get involved in these conversations, or if you have something you would want us to expand upon, by all means, let us know and we will expand.
Yes, definitely use our available contact methods as a forum for yourselves as well, as happened with one particular topic. What one was like 30 or so?
Something like
the one about
scalping.
It was about scalping. That was a great disquisition.
Yeah, honestly. So yeah, just let us know if you want us to expand upon something, and we don't have to do it in the show. We'll just do it on the Facebook or email or Twitter or Google Plus.
So Stephen in the email writes, as we all know, Comic-Con is finishing up today, and we all profit from it, even if we couldn't go. You know what I mean by that? Trailers. My two favorites had to have been, first one, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Woohoo!
So
I actually saw a preview for this before Pacific Rim. It's a show that
on ABC, right?
Yeah, and it's basically like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so the from the Marvel universe, and like them basically going around like dealing with superpowered individuals and stuff like that, and it's got the normal assembled motley crew of the new guy who is being introduced into it, and the veteran, and like the nerdy science guys and all that kind of stuff. And it definitely screams of like kind of that normal formula, like an NCIS type thing, except it's with superheroes.
Yeah, and they're not going to deal with the superheroes very much at all, really. That's kind of not the point.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We're not dealing with the Avengers. We're not necessarily dealing with even necessarily major Marvel characters, although I'm not going to be surprised at all when and if they do show up from time to time. But I will have to admit the fact that it's being written and produced by Joss Whedon does make me slightly happier about it, and the fact that every once in a while we may or may not get a cameo from Samuel L. Jackson, because that would be great.
So the second thing that Stephen writes about is Legend of Korra Book 2.
Woohoo!
So yeah,
also excited.
So how about you cover that, because I don't really pay attention to that at all.
Right. Legend of Korra Book 2, I believe, is Spirits. The idea that it picks up, I think it's fairly soon, right after the first book. Which those of you who watched the show, will kind of remember all the fun that happened with Amon and the whole Republic City thing. Supposedly, they're going to be doing a little bit more traveling, and they're getting out in the world, so you're going to get to see more of the areas and stuff.
So can you provide us with an analysis of the trailer?
The analysis of the trailer, well, I believe, actually, I learned about this before this trailer was released. I was actually watching something on the Disney Channel, and they had like an insider view on Book 2.
Okay.
But from what I understand, it actually is dealing with the fact that, for those of you who know anything about the Avatar, Last Airbender type stuff. The fact that like spirit bending is one of those things that is like, either insanely difficult to do or very rare that people can do it. And it's something where...
And people whose power level is over 9,000.
Yeah. But also dealing with like the natural spirits of the world. And I guess the natural spirits of the world are either having very big issues with things or are generally just really pissed off. So Korra having to go around and kind of bring everything back into balance, as is the Avatar's, job, basically. Mm-hmm. So everything looks pretty neat. I'm excited to see it because I really enjoyed the first book, and it's definitely looking like it's going to be just as good, if not better.
I like the way that we talk about it as though it were a book like adapted to being a TV show.
Well, they refer to the seasons as books.
I know. It's just kind of confusing in that way,
I suppose.
Anyway, Stephen goes on. Looks like I have a couple more shows to add to my weekly list. I completely forgot I was going to toss this out to you guys. I found this site, widescreen.org not too long ago. It talks about and educates people about the differences between widescreen letterbox and pan and scan. You'd think it wouldn't be relevant these days with 16:9 aspect ratio TVs, but you'd be wrong. I noticed that some stations are starting to pan and scan movies into 16:9 instead of showing them how they were meant to be. Give it a read through and be sure to check out the examples, widescreen and pan scan screen captures. All that from Steven. And that, me not watching a whole lot of TV, I actually kind of had not heard about that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The pan and scan thing being basically where a cinematic screen in the theaters is actually still wider as far as its aspect ratio is than even your big flat screen televisions today. So what they've taken to doing is, rather than put the black bars in as they should, what they do is they have let's just a part of the shot, and they start from one side of the shot and they move it over to the other, and hopefully you don't notice that you're missing something the entire time.
Yep. As a matter of fact, the idea that when you're viewing it in pan and scan, that they're basically just kind of chopping off the left and right hand sides of the screen.
Well, we're chopping off one side and then making up for it by going there later, but then chopping off the opposite side in the process.
Pretty much, yeah.
So yeah, and I think that it's silly that we still have not gotten over our hatred of these black bars. You're not losing anything, people.
The general idea is that they're kind of for people who don't have necessarily large screens, the black bars are making things smaller. Because,
yes,
you are kind of looking at it on a smaller screen.
So how about you just, place your television appropriately so that you get what you pay for,
Yeah. Well, it all really depends on who has what, but I think they're trying to unsuccessfully make it more available. I'm
still really surprised that that's still a thing, but oh well, I guess that will always be a thing for whatever reason.
Pretty much.
Habidakis on the Google Plus writes, a Robo Rally style iOS game? Yes, please! And he links to the Goblin Grand Prix Kickstarter.
Yep, Goblin Grand Prix is designed around the same idea as Robo Rally.
But Mark, what's Robo Rally?
Robo Rally was a board game made a good number of years ago. I don't remember the exact date. I could look it up, but I'm lazy.
You're bored?
No, I'm completely bored of this. I'm just going to leave.
This has been the Gaming Disquisition.
Yes, goodbye. Anyway, so the idea is all the players kind of decide on what they're going to do during their turn, and then it all kind of happens, and the chaos ensues because people aren't showing everyone what they're doing. Okay. Robo Rally was basically a race of robots, and they're conveyor belts and these other things. It was kind of a
basically what the core loop of the game is. You're dealt a hand of cards that have directions on them, and then so everybody puts down the directions for their robot that they want the robot to do. And then once everyone has done this, then all of them are revealed and all the robots move at once and pandemonium ensues.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea behind it. And Goblin Grand Prix is a game that's coming out for iOS and I think just iOS.
Well, they hope.
Yeah, when the Kickstarter goes. Hopefully they'll make an Android version if they end up succeeding.
Uh-huh.
But the idea is that they're basically just going to make a Robo Rally style game flavored differently so as to avoid all the copyright issues.
Yeah, so one thing that I do like about this entire idea is that they're leveraging really well the way that iOS games and just mobile games in general are generally played by basically making all the turns happen asynchronously. So you put in what you want to do with your cards, but nobody else has to be connected to you. So you just put that in, and then everybody else gets to it when they have time, and then when everybody has made their move, then they all happen at once. Then the next time that you log in, it looks like everybody moved, and here's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very savvy of them to have approached the board game kind of like that.
Oh, definitely. It makes sense just to have a multiplayer game. It's when you think about a game of Words with Friends or Draw Something, people get to it when they have the opportunity to do so, and that's what mobile games are about. If everyone has to be sitting down at the same time playing the game, then mobile games kind of lose a little bit of their what makes them easily accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's not like the Ouya, which is made for everybody to just sit down.
Pretty much, yeah.
So yes, so moving right along,
Dugga-dun.
We are going to get into some Inquisition responses. And Stephen, in the email, writes in response to, when did a simple rule alteration completely change a game? And he writes, I'm going to have to go with card games on this one. Uno, we've tossed a couple of rules in that, if done properly, can screw someone over. Normally, when you play a draw 2, the next person in line has to draw. We've changed it so that if the next person has one as well, they can play theirs and so on until no one has any left. I've seen it go around the table twice, and the person who had to draw ended up with 16 extra cards.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you can't play, you normally draw one card, and it is the next person's turn. We play where you draw until you get a card you can play. I've seen people drop to 20 cards until they found something they can use. That from Steven.
Yeah, I've played it with the draw until you find something you can use.
That sounds like an exercise in frustration.
Oh man, it's the whole like go fish, nope, go fish, nope, go fish, nope.
No, seriously though, it doesn't. I wonder how many of those versions of the rules like were kind of in like the play testing of the original game. I can't speak to like how games were developed, back when Uno was around for the first time. But I imagine that there had to be a little bit of testing and like just kind of sitting around even just some guy invite everybody to the house and say, hey, let's try this game.
Oh yeah, you never know whether it was going to be something that would just sprout it up as a house rule, or maybe like one of the editions of the game. Because I've seen this happen. Like an edition of the game was released, and they had like an addendum in the back of the rulebook saying, "Hey, switch up the gameplay. Try adding this rule, or try doing this." And then everyone forgot that it was actually in the rules, and everyone's like just house ruling it from that point on.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen with several games where, like, you sit down for a board game, people are like, oh, we're going to play it this way. Oh, is that a house rule? Oh, yeah, we just always done it this way. And then, like, someone picks up the rule book for the first time, blows a layer of dust off it, starts going through and goes, oh, hey, guys, look, it's actually in the rules that we're doing it that way.
Or even just like the ability to auction off properties in that Monopoly that everybody.
Exactly.
I don't know how we all forgot.
I have no idea.
It's such a weird cultural phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
So thank you, Stephen.
All right, so that's all of the Inquisition responses we had this week. So we're going to ask additional Inquisitions for additional responses, because that's how that works.
We're just going to keep asking questions.
And so this week, our Inquisition is based off of something that has to do with Fable.
Yeah, and actually this brought to light several things for me. First off, that apparently they're doing kind of an anniversary edition for Fable, which is making me very happy, because I want to be able to play the first Fable, not on an old Xbox.
I know, right? So Lionhead Studios, developer of Fable, are, as part of the Fable anniversary, are basically going out and saying, hey, everybody, how about you make an achievement, and we'll put it in the game.
We'll choose the one we like.
Yeah. So do our job for us, or something.
There's a fine line, I suppose, between getting community involvement and saying that the community has to do their jobs.
Oh, let's not kid ourselves. It's not like it's any real effort to design an achievement.
So, I mean, in that case, we can give them a pass.
I'm more taking a dig on achievements than Lionhead Studios right now, to be quite honest with you. But so the results are in fact, we have a winning achievement called "Are You Not Entertained?" I don't really understand the implications of this one, but apparently there's arena somewhere.
Yeah, the basically the Coliseum/arena in the game that you get to go in and fight. You can take a break between the different fights and stuff like that, and you can heal or whatever. And I guess the achievement that they're going for, or that has been decided on, is you can get through, all 14 rounds?
8 rounds.
8 rounds of the Coliseum or arena, and just not take a break.
Yeah, so you can do that, and evidently it's challenging. I'm gonna take their word for it, even though
it's something that people can try to do that's above and beyond what the game asks you to do. In the case of just, hey, this is a challenge to do. Go ahead and give it a shot.
I guess my question, since I don't know the Coliseum mechanics, is it something where, you have to, are there long-term resources that you have to manage in that game? It didn't ever seem like that was the case.
From what I understand, I don't think you get to take certain things into the Coliseum. Like, you just don't have access to, a lot of healing items or things like that. They give you a chance to break where you can do certain things, but it's kind of a non-stop giant, grinding battle. Mm-hmm. So,
Okay, well, that was a thing. I guess I can get behind that achievement more so than one of the runner-ups, which was obtain every melee weapon in the game, excluding Avo's Tear and Sword of Eons, or Aeons. Ions. Oeons.
Yeah.
Ooeons.
Yeah.
Aeons.
Yeah, right, that one.
I feel like that's an MST3K episode somewhere. Anyway.
Well, yeah, either way, it got us to thinking.
But we're done with the article.
No one cares about the rest of the article.
I do.
Okay, the Farticus achievement sucks.
It was awesome! So you had to tell us about the Farticus achievement.
I don't want to.
So the Farticus achievement, passing gas on Whisper in the Crucible before deciding her fate. How about that?
That's stupid.
Because it's all achievements are stupid. Here's achievements embracing their natural state.
Okay, fine. I mean, if that, I guess if you're gonna have something, I'm happier that they put the "Are You Not Entertained" achievement in there than I would be if the fan favorite was the Farticus achievement. That just speaks to that kind of level that I just don't want to involve. But oh well.
But it's achievements. It's optional. So it's everybody gets a choice.
I suppose.
Whatever.
But this again got us to thinking. People come up with these achievements. And we've talked a lot about all the different crazy achievements like Little Rocket Man and all that kind of stuff. Well, you've done things in your life.
Hopefully.
Well, all of you
Up
have.
until this point, perhaps.
I believe, strongly that all of our listeners at some point in their life have done something that they would think that is worthy of an achievement.
Yeah, so if you and maybe it is an actual achievement, in a game, or maybe it's something else entirely that is you could make something up for. So yeah, we have an Inquisition, and it goes like this.
What's your proudest achievement, and what's it called?
Proudest achievement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about normal everyday things that you've done with your life, or this doesn't necessarily have to be your proudest achievement. I mean, for all we care, it could be the Sleepyhead achievement for waking up after noon
5 times in a row.
Oh no, sure. Why not? I mean, just doing it once.
Man,
because it's like the you've achieved level 5. Well, I was going to achieve level 5 anyway. Thanks, achievement system.
8 lunch achievement.
Exactly. Get your suit pressed.
But maybe, no, you get paid for doing that,
right? And an achievement.
But did you see the? I didn't put this article in the show notes, but did you see the news that the latest thing on Steam Greenlight to let us know how savvy people who want games on Steam are? The latest Steam Greenlight,
Steve Greenlight achievement.
The latest Steam Greenlight approval. I think it's approval, either that or it's on the docket. Is the HD remix for Deadly Premonition? Oh man! So we get for
PC.
It's definitely coming to. It's coming to PC.
Get modded. Oh man!
Maybe somebody will actually make the game
worthwhile.
An actual
playable.
Actually playable and not ridiculously silly.
That's too much.
Oh man! For. You know what we would do?
We're just going to remake the game.
You know what we would do is we would make it's like Simon's Quest 2 redacted. We could make Deadly Premonition redacted.
Oh man! Okay, well let's move on with this Inquisition. What do you got, Sam? What's your proudest achievement, and what would you call it? Because I know you're all about the Chivos.
I know, right? I mean, I don't. Man, I actually probably should have thought about this.
You really should have.
I was really excited about this one, too. And, I can't... Mark, go ahead and take one.
No passing the buck on this one. What do you got?
I'm gonna come up with one. Just give me a minute.
You've had how many minutes since we came up with this?
And I'm gonna have another.
You're not getting another. Right now, on the spot. Go.
Come on.
Chivo.
Well, I don't want to do one that has to do with doing the podcast for a year.
You know what? That's an excellent one.
I suppose I could do that, but that one just seems like we've already kind of done that.
Well, obviously, I'd say it's an achievement you could be proud of. What would you name it?
What would I name it?
What is the name of the achievement for doing the podcast for a full year?
Starhawk Infinity? I don't know. Maybe that seems like it might be more like the 5-year mark.
I don't know. Well, Starhawk Infinity maybe, but you can maybe have just Starhawk Act 1.
That does kind of describe the entirety of the show, really.
Maybe a little.
Starhawk!
Yes, that is the name of the achievement for doing the podcast for 1 year.
Shout out, Kevin! So how about you, Mark?
Oh man, I should have thought of one too.
So Sam and Mark's like mutual achievement is like
It's forgetting to come up with an answer for
procrastinating like our own show content. Naming it, I thought you had one.
Oh man, no, of course I did. Obviously, you just have to go first.
No. That's the name of the show of the achievement. Is I thought you had one.
Oh man, I'd say. I would say probably, since we're going with the Disquisition themed achievement here, I'd say coming up with a smart ass thing to say at the beginning of every podcast that is unscripted, unwritten down, and unthought of until the moment I say it. Is probably a great achievement of mine. Just coming up with some stupid intro thing.
Which is called what?
Snarkiness to the max.
I was going to call it break music here for thee.
Okay, there you go.
Man, we're just pulling out all the stops here.
Yeah, man, we are so good at this.
So, but if you think you can do better,
oh, for the love of God, do better.
You can respond to this week's Inquisition, which goes like this:
What's your proudest achievement, and what's it called?
Send responses to the email at gamingdisquisition@gmail.com.
You get an achievement for that. You can see us on Facebook, facebook.com/thegamingdisquisition, or on the Google+.
You can't see us really on Facebook. I mean, we
there
have
are pictures.
They're not.
Wait, are there?
I don't think there are pictures of us.
We're really bad at this. There are just no pictures of us on the Facebook. How do we overlook that?
I think our caricatures are kind of like all we kind of need, right?
We do look like that.
We really do.
I'm taking a picture of you before I leave.
Either way, get a hold of us on Twitter. At Disquisitor Sam.
Or at Disquisitor Mark.
On Twitter.
Tweet.
Why do we got to do the pictures?
To let our expanded listener base know what we look like.
But they already know. Like
they know vaguely what we look like.
We look like a bunch of ink drawings.
Oh yeah. In addition to this, send us some. I want some Disquisition fan art. Go.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. Well, like draw us piloting Starhawks versus each other. That would be amazing.
Oh man.
All right then. So that's all we got for the feedback section of the show.
Over a field of dead, beaten horses.
It's true.
Because if there's anything we do consistently on this show is beat dead horses.
But we need new horses to beat, and so we'll just have to make a few of those.
Sam, just say nay.
Oh God, are we gonna go there? If this keeps up, I'm going to hoof it.
We just love horsing around. Okay.
You can tell by our unbridled joy.
Okay, I'm calling full on that one.
I think it's time for the news. And this week in the news,
we're back in the saddle.
It's Bug.
Hey, it's okay. I'm stuck on one that's like glue.
Wow, man, that's beating a dead horse right there. Anyway,
mainly mixing it up, melting it down, and using it for industrial purposes. But anyway,
so in the news this week. So the Ouya is a thing, and has been for a while, and
apparently.
So it's been kind of we now that we have had some time for it to kind of settle down and to like kind of get a feel for what's been going on with this whole like Yaz and the Ooze and like what do we do with these things? Evidently, we play games like Towerfall.
Yeah, apparently Towerfall is an exclusive to the Ouya,
of which there are like very very few,
like 2, 3.
Because here's the thing: is remember it's an Android-based device, so there's really no reason to not to port a lot of these games to other devices as well. So, there's not a whole lot of exclusive on this thing, which from a business and marketing standpoint, like we kind of proved a long time ago that for a console to be really super competitive, it needs to have all these exclusives.
Generally, yeah. I mean, like, the reason why I bought an Xbox was for the Halo and Fable series, and the reason I bought a PS3 was for the Uncharted. The idea that the Ouya really needs something to scream out and say, hey, guys, this is a game you can only get from us, which is why their developers kind of made an interesting decision.
So there is what basically amounts to an indie fund in a lot of ways,
also known as a bribe.
Yeah, basically yes. So here's what's going on with this. Basically, what we have is the company is putting aside $1 million, and they're going to basically kind of like back Kickstarters that already.
Here's how it works: if a Kickstarter for a game pledges to Ouya and says that for 6 months we will be exclusive to the Ouya, what will happen is after the game gets funded, i.e. showing Ouya and the people, the developers, that the game has enough support to actually get made, then the Ouya people will then double the amount that their Kickstarter raised. So if they made $50,000 on a Kickstarter, well, the Ouya people will give you another $50,000.
And they're calling this initiative the Free the Games Fund. And really, what they're doing here is they are trying to drum up a little support. And actually, in a lot of ways, like this touches the industry, or like it touches the process in a lot of ways. Because now, when you're looking at the Kickstarter of a game that has pledged to be Ouya exclusive, now the people who are like looking at the Ouya and funding them, they already know, because it's been announced on the Kickstarter, they're going to be Ouya exclusive. So it's kind of an interesting little, it's like meta advertising for them right there, which is kind of the whole nature of what an exclusive is anyway. But it's kind of far-reaching and is kind of many-faceted in what it actually does for the Ouya, assuming this works.
But there's unfortunately a problem with how they're doing it. One of the things that they're doing
is it a problem?
The fact what really caught me off guard is the fact that the Ouya developers are basically. They're giving this money to the people after they've made the game. It's not something they're putting into production of the game. They're giving it to them after.
Not all of it. They are basically what's going to happen is they're giving them 25% like up as soon as they meet their goal. Correct me if these numbers are wrong, but I'm fairly certain I'm remembering this accurately. They get 25% as soon as they meet their goal, 50% as soon as it releases, which means it kind of doesn't go to development. It actually goes more to advertising.
Well, advertising,
than anything. Yeah. Which makes a lot of sense considering that they're spending their money to do this. And then the last 25% they get after the 6-month period to kind of hold that in, as
basically make sure that they stay exclusive.
Yes, exactly. So that so like there's been some complaints about this. There's some people that are kind of upset over, why are they giving it to games that have already succeeded? They could give it to games that aren't going to succeed. But I don't see that as the point.
No, actually, I don't. That's not the point I got out of it. I just thought it was weird that they were basically waiting to give some of the money after the fact. But I suppose it does make some sense.
Yeah, like the structure of the way that the money is awarded is designed to fulfill their purpose. And what people have to kind of get out of their heads is this idea that that this is like some sort of charity. This is an investment. This is exactly what that's exactly the word I would actually use for this, because it's designed to basically get people on board with the idea that I can get my game advertised more and get a potentially a much wider audience, even if it comes what's actually really fair about this is that the exclusivity being only 6 months, you can actually still kind of reap those those advertising dollars even further on down the line. Not to say
definitely.
Not to say that you are like spending the money after the 6 months is up, but basically you are being assisted in the way that you are advertising your game. And then after the 6 months is up, hopefully the install base is high enough and you have reached enough people that it kind of has a little bit of momentum on its own.
No, one thing I would really like to know is I want to see the wording of this weird contract, because when it comes to Kickstarter, you're pretty much like bound by the terms and service of Kickstarter that you have to put the money that you're raising into what you're actually making. Mm-hmm. Like you can't just like do a Kickstarter for $50,000 to make a game and then like go to Europe, or like just go on vacation for a couple of years, but the thing is like the extra money that Ouya is putting in there, I'm interested to see if there's like I would like to see if there's a contract there to make it sure, because what happens if, say, game developer X decides, I'm going to make this game and it's going to be exclusive to the Ouya, and we raised our $75,000 to make this game, and then we got this other $75,000 that we get. Well, the 75,000 was more than enough for us to make our game and market it and do all the things we need. But now we have this extra $75,000 round. So let's make a game for the Xbox. Or let's go and make a game for PC. Or let's go to Cabo San Lucas. Or, whatever they're going to do. The idea is like that extra money. I don't see it as a guarantee that it's going to be put into any sort of game. But I'd have to say, I mean, if the people behind Ouya are business savvy at all, which I can hope that they are, that's something that's been taken care of in the legality, because it just seems like an oversight.
Now, there is one thing that is bothering me a little bit about the whole nature of this, and that is like the Ouya is definitely something that it's meant to be something new and something different as far as its model, as far as its culture is really kind of the thing that it's trying to sell. Interestingly enough, I have seen very little Ouya coverage in the mainstream media, but a lot of the indie dudes that I follow on Twitter can't shut up about this thing. I have
to admit, it's intriguing enough that I'm genuinely thinking about looking into it.
I actually am too, which is saying a lot, considering that I'm not really a console gamer anymore at all. So this is maybe there's something to this, and at a $99 price tag, I mean it's that. I mean, yeah, you pay more in a year. You pay more than that for 6 months of WoW. Yeah, no kidding.
So I mean, think about getting a console for that you can then plug in and play a $10, $15 game that's going to give you as much entertainment. I mean, the Towerfall game apparently has got some rave reviews, and it's raised a decent amount of money for the people who made it. So I mean, especially considering it's not one of those breakout indie hits that's just everywhere.
Yeah.
But I do foresee, and this is something that I'm really hoping for, some of the other developers, like the people who make some of these Android games that I'm playing, like the Dungeon Village and stuff like that. I'd like to see an Ouya version of that where I can sit down at my TV and play these games, or even something like maybe Mojang will come back and say, hey, we'll make a game for the Ouya. Why not?
Yeah, we'll sell you cards.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm interested to see if this is going to go a good place, but I'm worried that there is just that it's going to fall down around somebody's ears, and it's going to be that it is terribly handled.
Well, the reason why I'm worried is because there's a small install base. Basically, the last number I've seen is 60,000 units that was shipped to just the early backers in general. But the thing is, I feel like trying to go for these exclusive titles and whatnot is perhaps the first step down a slippery slope of a business model that might rapidly become that of the current one. I'm not saying that this is a damning step for them to take, but it has my interest in basically thinking, well, this seems very similar to kind of how we started doing the consoles way back in the 70s and the 80s.
As long as they maintain their open source and all the other stuff that they're doing.
Open source. That's not quite
not quite open source. The fact is that a developer's console for the Ouya isn't 100% required. You can basically use the same kind of development tools that you're using for any of these other things, which is generally open source.
Basically, my the concern that I have is that there's not a lot of money in the Ouya right now, and a lot of people are using that as some way to some reason to deride the Ouya. I consider that to be a quality, because that means that they're not really super caught up in in just this really uphill battle of oh man, I got to ramp up my production, I got to ramp up my dollars, and then I got to sell 12 billion copies and just
right,
and basically fall into the same money pit that the industry's in right now. I feel like this is a chance to be something different. And the more steps I take them, the more as though there was more than one right now,
right?
But
there are. Remember, we talked about a couple of those little the Android dongles that you plug into your TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No. What I mean is more than one step that they've taken in the direction of being a money pit.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I just any step that they take in that direction is going to have me raising my eyebrow, if not my hackles. Yeah. So we'll see, but this is an interesting development, and
it's one of the first indie consoles, really. I mean, we have no idea where it's going to go or how it's going to be received in the long run. I mean, there are still people out there paying top dollar for NESs, SNESs, game systems that have been out for so long. We may never know. I mean, the Ouya might be something that is like a sleeper hit. Like something's going to come out. One of these games that's going to get funded is going to be so incredibly big and awesome. The Ouya might then suddenly blow up and become this gigantic, industry machine.
Well, I'm sure what they're hoping to do with this fund. But like, I guess I'm hoping that it doesn't kind of go to their heads and like basically put them into a scenario where they feel as though they have to make only the biggest and baddest games and everything. Yeah,
let's hope.
I'm not describing this super well right now.
Let's hope they keep let's try to keep them humble, I suppose, is a terrible way to put it. But the idea
we can put them in a bundle.
Yes, but I guess the idea, that there are going to be indie developers, and there are always going to be indie developers, we hope. And giving those people and focusing on that market and those types of developers seems to be where the Ouya was really wanting to be. And as long as they maintain that and don't start focusing their attention on creating the next EA or the next BioWare,
or even the next Nintendo, because Nintendo is definitely not faultless as an industry giant.
Maybe we're going to see the Ouya as a stepping stone for some developers, where the Ouya is you make a game for the Ouya, you become big, you get enough money raised that you can then afford to start making a game for the PS4 or the Xbone or whatever. That's my prediction at this point. If it does go anywhere, it's going to be as a stepping stone.
I guess. I just if someone decides to make a game for the PS4, well, I'm not going to have one, so I don't care.
Right.
Anyway, so moving right along to our next article. There is an article on Massively that was written by Brendan Drain, who is one of my favorite dudes, as I mentioned earlier. He does all the EVE Online coverage.
Yeah.
And he was responding to an article that, let's see...
Mike Foster
wrote an article where he has a quote, "You will not wish you had spent more time gaming on your deathbed." On your deathbed.
Generally, the initial article was basically him saying, gaming is great and all, and gaming is cool, but it's not a replacement for real life. It is not a quote, "Gaming is a hobby and not a replacement for a life well lived." And unquote, and that it's not our gaming achievements, but our real life ones that'll be proudly told to our grandchildren. And he did go on. He wasn't saying that gaming is terrible and all these things, but he definitely was more in the arena of, well, gaming is fun and all, but it's not the most important thing in life.
Yes, but I feel as though he's on some level, in a lot of the ways that he's presented it, is that he's kind of deriding games in a lot of ways.
It does come off at that. I mean, everyone's had that told to them before, I'm sure. Any gamers out there who have had a family member or a friend be like, "Man, why do you spend so much time with those games? Why don't you go out and live life?"
I know, right? And it speaks because, so the article by Brendan Drain on Massively basically kind of refutes it and says, "Oh, well, there's all these shared experiences I had with my friends, and I'll be able to tell the stories of really crazy things that happened at EVE Online, and all that's totally valid." But the thing is, I feel as though the entire topic speaks to our culture and the state of games right now, because games really still don't have the respect that they could, and in some ways, I feel as though that respect is largely undeserved right now. Because there are especially today, there's so many games that are literally designed to be wastes of your time.
Well, yeah, and I don't think that people are going to be talking about the fact one of the greatest achievements of my life is I spent 500 hours playing Farmville. I don't think that's what people are really going for here. I'm talking with the people who took place on who took part in Burn Jita, or the things that the kind of group activities that can be talked about for years and years and years just from these games. He does talk a lot about MMOs, but he does talk about just other achievements that you might have achieved in these games.
Yes, but these are all very meta things that require specialized knowledge of. It's just you have to know what Jita is before you can even begin to talk about Burn Jita.
But if you threw a no-hitter in baseball, if you don't know anything about baseball, then that's still something you need specialized knowledge for.
I understand that, but but that knowledge is there. Culturally we have that knowledge, and the cultural implications of that for games is that we don't really view video games in the same light as we do other things that we could pursue as a hobby. And what I like to use the word discipline. We don't view games as a discipline unless, they are on our televisions and you're making millions of dollars, or 0.001% of people who ever play baseball are making millions of dollars a game. Because that is not a thing in video games, or even just board games or like chess or things like that. People largely do not regard games as a discipline, as something to be pursued and to be very proud of as far as your achievements go. As far as that goes,
to be perfectly honest, that's something that he does talk about in the article, about that games are, albeit slowly, in relation to a lot of some other things, but they are moving up in the fact that games are now just such a huge part of our culture. I mean, we do deal with the fact that there are those detractors, and we have a generation that has grown up with video games as one of the major things that people do with their childhood, with their adulthood. It's something where, the previous generation that is still around and is still doing all these things, they're the people making, a lot of the decisions about how all this stuff is. And, well, you know what? When they're gone, this kind of stuff is going to be the norm. I mean, when we're sitting here and when we talk about movies nowadays, the previous generation that we're still dealing with, they understand movies. They have accepted movies as what they are. I mean, there's always going to be those people who detract from it anyway. Like, why are you sitting around watching movies all day?
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying, but what you're saying is that video games will just suddenly become respected by default. And if that were to happen, I still don't think that we would deserve it.
Well, not necessarily respected by default.
Well, what I mean is just by the fact that everybody plays them and no one will think twice about them. There's a section in Brendan Drain's article where he says that games aren't a waste of time. That's a whole header. The thing is, he puts World of Warcraft, a little picture of that right next to the header, which I think was really careless of him.
Well, okay, the idea that he used World of Warcraft as an example because, he doesn't consider it a waste of time, all the time that he spent with his guild mates and with all the...
but he doesn't spend time... That's the design of World of Warcraft, especially today, is not designed to put you with your guild mates. It's designed to be a massively single-player online RPG.
Right, although he does, I believe, mention at some point where, the one regret he does have is that he didn't get to raid during Burning Crusade era, or things like that. So, I mean, the things that are... The whole article, really, in a nutshell, is talking about, well... the first point that he really brings up is the 5 regrets of the dying. I guess they've done there's been a lot of research and talked to people who are, in terminally ill or who are just at the end of their life, and these people go around and ask them, what are your regrets? They go to elderly patients and stuff and they, well, what did you really want to do? And they've kind of they brought it down to the top 5 regrets. And I guess when his major response is the original article done by Mike Foster was, I wish I didn't spend so much time gaming. Well, the top 5 regrets of the dying that they've researched, there's nothing on there that says, oh, I wish I didn't have as much fun, or I wish I didn't waste so much time.
Here's the 5. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. I wish I'd let myself be happier. I wish I'd had the courage to express my true self. And I wish I lived a life true to my dreams instead of what others expected of me. So,
interesting. In this case, this article does talk about hey, playing video games will solve a couple of those problems for you. But, obviously with everyone it's going to be different. But I do see where he's coming from in the article. It's a decent idea, and maybe he's not as eloquent about putting it out there as maybe he could be.
All I'm saying is that they're writing for Massively definitely puts a particular bent on it, and some of the games that he mentions are perhaps more deserving or less deserving than he is giving them credit for.
Yeah, I think the reason why this whole article really kind of spoke to me just comes down to the fact that, I've dealt with very many times, from family, not actually less from family, more from friends and people I know who will detract from games, who will say, why do you play these games? Why do you do this? Why don't you go outside and why don't you, go to the park and just watch the sunset or, these things, that's what life's really about and you're just wasting time. And it's
and largely in many cases you are. At least with today's games.
Well, the thing is that, if you enjoy watching a sunset and I enjoy mindlessly clicking to get items in a thing, you know what? I'll feel fulfilled either way. You go feel fulfilled however you want.
Anyway, we're going to move on then to a new article from the Legends and Lore Archives, which is a series done by Wizards of the Coast on the ongoing development of D&D 5th.
Yeah, we've brought up a few articles on them here and there. I believe we talked about hit points last time. That was also in this article, or in the.
We did a whole a whole main topic dedicated to basically a back archive of all the articles.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike Merles writes about what they're doing with feats. And so we mentioned last time that feats are going to be something where you don't have to, feats are going to be optional, and instead you can take you can basically spend a feat slot on a +1 to your ability score, which is pretty powerful.
Actually, I guess it's more 2 points to, it's either a +2 to 1 ability or a +1 to 2 different abilities that you're exchanging
that's
for a
even
feat.
bigger then.
Yeah. The thing to take away from this one, and we do suggest anyone who's interested, because we're not going to be able to go over the entire article, but the main thing I got out of this was that they're making it so that feats are going to be a balance to a stat. You have a choice at certain levels of saying, I'm either going to get a stat increase or a feat. Now, those of you who are used to 3.5 or Pathfinder or anything would probably be like, oh man, I would obviously take a stat increase because so many of these there's so many feats.
But Wizards knows that, and so what they did was they're supercharging the feats.
Yeah, they're making them so that you can, instead of having 4 feats that you need to take as prerequisites to get up to 1 awesome feat, they're just making all of the feats pretty awesome.
Well, what they're doing is they're taking the 4, if you're talking about a 3 feat thing where you have to take this as a prerequisite to that, as a prerequisite to that, they're just taking all 3 of those feats and throwing them into one, because they know that you want the one down the bottom, and the two that are prereqs support it. So let's not have all these weird boring stepping stones until you get to the thing that you really want.
Just to give you an example, they gave 2 examples here. First one they call Great Weapon Master, and obviously these are they're going to be developed. They haven't been developed fully, or they haven't been edited to be their final result. But this is what they've come up with. Great Weapon Master. The benefit of the feat is you gain proficiency in heavy martial weapons. So there's one feat there. Mm-hmm. It says when you make a melee attack with a weapon. With a weapon, it doesn't say a heavy weapon, obviously, but again, that might just be an edited thing. You can take a -5 to the attack to double your damage with the attack.
Which sounds like power attack.
Greater than power attack.
It is a even more powerful power attack.
Yeah.
But
and
it's
also, in addition to that, when you score a crit with the melee weapon or reduce a creature to 0 with a melee weapon, you can make 1 additional melee attack as part of the same action.
So you get a proficiency, power attack, and cleave all in the same feat.
Yep, and there is a little bit of response to this article that got some interesting questions raised. One guy was saying if they're going to keep the normal progression of how many ability scores increases you get, that means a level 20 character will have 5 feats. Yeah, and it means that one of the things that makes a level 1 to 4 character unique amongst other level 1 to 4 characters is feats. And if you take away the fact that you're not going to be able to get a feat until 4th level, okay, well, I guess that means that levels 1 to 3. Every character is going to be that much more similar to each other. Yes,
but I do recall reading reading one of the posts that said that the first few levels are actually going to be almost instantaneously earned. The very, very early levels are going to go so much faster than they ever have before is the impression that I got.
I suppose if you're going to be playing a game where you use experience as intended, then that makes sense. Games like how I run, where I level my players based on what they've done.
So start them at 4,
Yeah, and that's just how it's going to have to be. But even then, that means that every character gets a feat. Albeit it's going to be a feat that can really define how their character wants to fight or how they really view their character. It's something where, what if they decided halfway through that the leveling progression that they didn't that they kind of didn't want to be that way. I don't know. There are issues with it. I'm hoping that they're going to work it out. But the idea that the feats are now going to be as good, if not, more enticing than an ability score increase. That's neat. I like the idea.
I guess. The thing is, I feel as though the problem that they referred to of there are some feats are just boring until you get to the top of it.
Yeah.
I think could potentially have been solved with a little bit more granularity by basically making all the feats not only exciting on their own, but having different not paths necessarily, but like having like different feats that were designed to work with each other in certain ways, but like have options for like which direction that you wanted to take it. Mm-hmm. Like have one give a +1 to something, and then there's a way that you can like attack with a spell or attack with a second weapon, and basically build it up in different ways. So I feel like that's another direction they could have gone, and I feel like perhaps this might take away a little bit of the customization that even 4th edition enjoyed, which didn't have any feats that were like really built on each other at all.
Right. So we'll have to see how it really comes out. Obviously, they're still working on these, developing them and editing them. So we'll have to see how it works out. But
we'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
So moving right along, we have so Capcom is collaborating with Treasure on a new game called Geist Crusher. So did you take a look at that real quick?
I did. It definitely looks like a new IP.
It looks like a new IP.
It's got an anime.
To me, it looks boring as sin.
It looks like an anime plus, integrated with a game.
So the reason why I bring this up is because Treasure is like, I like the Treasure as a developer. I think that while some of their games are a little bit clumsy, maybe somewhat, I think that they generally try to have some really cool and unique ideas.
I would like to at least let people know, Sin and Punishment 2 was also made by Treasure.
Yeah, I was going to go there right away. Sin and Punishment, which was basically like if you take if you like combine the bases in Contra 1 with a rail shooter and just turn that into the whole game, like that's what Sin and Punishment was. It was kind of unique in that way. They're the developer of Ikaruga, which was the one which had the polarities with your shoot 'em up. And they even had a really interesting game called Mischief Makers, which is like it basically centers around picking things up and throwing them. So like, you pick up an enemy and you throw them to do damage to them, or you throw them into other enemies, and then like you like pick up floating platforms, which doesn't actually pick them up, but like it attaches you to them, and then you throw the platform, which actually throws you in a certain direction. There was even a really cool moment in the last boss where you're on like this floating thing.
Spoilers.
It's okay. It's not really a story-based game, but there's a game where there's the last boss is like you're on a floating thing of in the middle of some lava, and there's a guy in the background who's like trying to punch you, and you catch his fist, throw it against the ground, and ricochet off to hit him in the chin.
Nice.
Like it's just clever in certain ways, and like looking at Geist Crusher, it pains me because like it looks like a bunch of dudes with swords that combo. Just
to be honest, the fact that they're making a 4-player cooperative and multiplayer game that's going to be 3DS, where it's basically tongue-in-cheek Saturday morning action type thing, that it looks interesting.
No, it doesn't. It looks like the same. It looks like 4-player Kingdom Hearts / Gauntlet. It's just like if there's nothing interesting going on.
You know what? From the gameplay video, they may add in some things that you might like. They might make it just as interesting as pick up and throw things. You never know. We'll have to see how the game is.
It seems very not Treasure, but
the
anyway.
fact that the fact that there's another IP coming out of Capcom is actually pretty cool.
Perhaps it has to be quality, and I guess Treasure making a series of games like based on the Bleach anime. I guess they got to pay their bills once in a while.
Yeah. Well, speaking of IP, really quick, I did want to mention first off, Capcom yet again another IP they're working on. Another Strider Hiryu game.
That's not a new IP.
No. Not new IP, but speaking of IPs.
Yeah, so they're making a new Strider game, and like we
know almost nothing about it.
Well, no, I watched some gameplay footage of it, and I just watched kind of like how it plays, and basically it's you run right and push the sword button. The game,
yeah,
because like it's so dumb because like it has the same problem with Sonic as it's way too zoomed in, and you move way too quickly to actually properly react to things around you. And like nothing seems to matter because like, yeah, you take damage, but like everything seems to drop health. So all right, whatever. And then like one of the very first things that you get is an item that powers up your sword to deflect bullets. Now you're not even worrying about it. You just turn on your auto fire on your controller and just like breeze your way through the game.
Pretty much. It's like starting the Symphony of the Night with the Crusader.
It is. And actually that's a really, really good analogy.
Yeah.
But that's happening, and that seems like it's so silly. Like, why are these decisions being asked of you as the player if none of them matter? Just do this and win.
Well, although I do have to say that the next IP I'd like to mention something about does have me really excited.
Oh yeah,
being a Firefly fan. I was exceedingly excited to hear that apparently they are making a Firefly quote-unquote MMORPG.
Social MMO.
Yep, for Android and iOS. So
Fantastic.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, like, and the whole thing is predicated on like the on that quote from Mel that like a pilot
get a ship, find a crew, get a job, keep flying.
Yeah, so basically or in MMO terms, get your friends playing the game, give you some busy work, keep making money.
Well, yeah, and I guess in this kind of thing, and Sparkplug Games, by the way, have teamed up with Fox Interactive to do this. And they did mention, at least in this article, that a lot of developers have tried their hand at it, and like a lot of them just start making, and go, no. I think we're just not going to handle the IP properly. We're not getting the feel of what we wanted to get out there.
So instead, we're just going to make a social MMO that's super super grindy. I mean, that's the only thing I can see coming out of the premise of get your friends on board and then like get a job.
Well, okay, to be perfectly honest, the Firefly RPG, like the role playing game with the books, the pen and paper.
Yeah.
Was basically exactly what they're talking about here.
But you can't. What you're removing is the actual like human element again, where like the human can inject interesting like cool things that you got to deal with like socially, abstractly. That's they won't be able. I can't see it possibly happening with something like this.
If they're doing an MMORPG, maybe I'm interested to see how they're going to do it, because there's like no footage of this game aside from maybe like a zoom out showing a bunch of ships flying around a space station. And, if they, like, in my mind's eye, it's almost like Escape Velocity MMO,
Which was kind of fun in its own little way, but, like, I can't see someone having even that amount of vision, and that game's dated even today.
Okay, what if it ends up being, like, the weird iOS port of Eve? Like, it just turns into this ridiculous, like,
there's no way
with a crew. You know what? Again, I'm just saying that, a lot of people get into this, and it then becomes this giant interactive thing where you have the people playing the game that are creating the stories.
Giant interactive thing with the people playing the game.
Maybe the players are the ones creating the stories. If they're making a quote-unquote social MMO, I can see that being it.
I feel like if they were being that ambitious, that would be like word one.
Yeah, well, maybe people don't necessarily have that terminology in their vocabulary.
And that's all we're going to do for the news this week, so we need to go to the break and listen to some tunes. When we come back, we are going to be talking about one of our
games.
Characters. Email. No, that was earlier.
Right.
So we're going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to everybody's hearts, that being Legend of Zelda. And we can we can talk about like what some of the implications of that game were, past and present. And all that and more coming your way after the break, so sit right there. This is the Gaming Disquisition with Sam and Mark, and by our own volition, this edition of our Disposition Inquisition will be back after this brief intermission. The Gaming Disquisition with Sam and Mark continues. I am Sam.
I am Mark.
This is the Disquisition.
And the Disquisition is here to stay.
That we are. Main topic is coming your way in just a moment. Music from the break this week. Our first track is called Flugel Rock. That's from Jan Thouin, also known as Thunder Thouin on OC Remix.
It's .org.
This is a track that comes from the Sega Genesis rendition of Batman, and he writes in the liner notes, "I'm really excited to cover this game because it brings back a lot of memories. Naoki Kodaka is like a legend in my opinion. What he did on numerous titles was almost melodically driven and epic. Always melodically driven and epic. So when I browsed through the overclocked list, I couldn't believe there was not a single remix about this game. Come on, guys, the whole soundtrack is awesome. I altered the structure a bit, especially for Flugelheim, but the main melody is always present, so I hope it's okay for the judges. After 2:33, I stick with that section until the end because it felt more engaging and easy to build up the climax with the melody. So here it is. I'm really happy to pay my respect to an epic composer, and I hope you guys will like it. That's from Thunder Thouin. This is a track that what was interesting about it was his stylistic decisions kind of lent it to the Hollywood Batman theme anyway.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it didn't stay there because like there's also some rather rock influences, some electronica influences, which are not quite like so grandiose as Batman, but they kind of they captured what the game was going for as far as that soundtrack goes. So I thought that was that was well chosen as a kind of a nod to the whole Batman character.
Oh, definitely.
So if you'd like to check out a little bit more by Thunder Thouin, you can check them out at youtube.com/user/Thunder Thouin. That's Thouin. Let's see. Our next track is called Banananaz.
Banana. Banananaz.
This is a track by Luke Barden, also known as Chiwalker, or Luke Chiwalker, on OC Remix.
It's .org.
This is a song that comes from Donkey Kong Land on the Game Boy. Who remembered that was the thing?
Yeah, seriously.
He writes in the liner notes, my stab at 100 beats per minute glitch hoppish track that I refer to as walking music. I call it that because when listening to this tempo whilst walking, it is easy to fit your stride and makes you feel like a badass. I wish I was skilled enough to make animations to create a video to go along with this remix. Imagine the Donkey Kong walking down a path at 000, and Diddy Kong's sneaky self throws a banana peel at 0:4.
40.
At 40, that DK slips on at 57 and starts to fall and hit his head. He hits his head and opens his eyes, and stars are circling over his head, like in Looney Tunes. And he gets up with the setting has changed to a trippy jungle, and DK resumes walking with oh so much more badassness at 107. He continues walking, and similar events happen to him a second time. Diddy throws a new banana in his already trippy world and sends DK's mind into much more distorted perspective of the jungle at 243. Eventually, his mind clears, and he comes back to his reality. Note, zero illegal drugs were used in the inspiration creation of this mix.
glad he had to add that in there.
That's from Chiwalker, and I think the operative word there is illegal. And so,
true.
So anyway, this is when he refers to this as walking music, he definitely delivers on his promise, because like as soon as I read that, I started walking around my room, and he's right. You can just kind of just go bam, bam, bam with your feet, just like yeah, I am a badass, and just like, and they'll slip on the banana peel that is like the clothing still on my floor,
right?
But if you'd like to check out a little bit more of clothing on Chiwalker's floor,
or Luke Barden,
you can get a hold of him at soundcloud.com/Luke Barden, Barden.
And as you know, you can always check out the show notes on the Facebook and wherever else they're posted, i.e. YouTube, etc., for more websites to the artists and links to the higher quality versions of the tracks.
Definitely do so. So, we are going to move to the last topic, the main topic, the biggest topic, the topic to end all topics.
Well, no, because there's going to be a topic next week.
In this particular disquisition.
Yes.
And our topic this week is The Legend of Zelda as a franchise and as a design in general. So here's in the parlance of Yahtzee, cards on the table so hard as to slice someone's eye out, wherein Sam posits that The Legend of Zelda on the NES may be the single most intractably damaging thing to happen to gaming in its entire history.
And where Mark posits that A, Sam is immune to nostalgia, and B, thinks about things too hard.
So I guess with those cards on the table, I think we're actually going to be doing this like an old school versus round. So cue music, here we go! This week in the versus round. So, again, Legend of Zelda, and
this was brought to us by Steven, listener Steven.
Sort of. Actually, the story is that, like, this is something I've been kind of, like, it's been percolating in my head for a while, and I happened to discuss this very topic with Steven, so apologize to you, you're going to hear the whole story all over again. But he sent in an article that kind of not necessarily refuted what I was saying, but perhaps gave a little bit more credence to the Legend of Zelda game series just in general. We'll get to that article in a minute, but first, let me qualify my statement of what it was that actually about Zelda that is so intractably damaging.
Go ahead.
So I went to PAX a few years ago, and there was a semi-casual panel about the top 100 NES games of all time.
Uh-huh.
Inevitably, the number one game is Legend of Zelda. And so, like, the whole time they'd been talking about, like, interesting things about the games and, like, what was cool, or these mechanics or what have you. But when they got to Legend of Zelda, nobody could really put their finger on what it was about Legend of Zelda they liked so much. Really what it came down to was the fact that it was, quote-unquote, the first time that you could really get lost in a game. And just have this sense of place. And just like a lot of these really touchy-feely kind of absurdities, really. But they paid no attention to what's actually going on with the Legend of Zelda series in general. And it's a thing that the Legend of Zelda series has continued to do even into the modern era. It's kind of depressing in a way. So what is it about Zelda that Sam hates so much? Well, I talked with one of my buddies, Chris, who kind of put me on this in the first place, and he posits that The Legend of Zelda is nothing but a game full of nothing but keys and doors. Now, I'm not talking about like the actual physical keys and the physical doors that you can kind of like are conceptualized on screen. We're talking about like everything is just metaphorically keys and doors. So at times when you're in a dungeon, there is a wall, and the key to the wall is a bomb. So you open up and you pass through it. Sometimes you'll see a 1-block little river that you have to cross, and the key to the river is the ladder. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you'll see a dock, and the key to the dock is a raft. And most things in the game, like whether they be pushing rocks or I'm trying to think, or burning trees with the candle, everything about this game is all about just use what you've got and open the way. And it's not even presented in a way that is designed to make you feel super clever about it. People really like to talk about the puzzles in Legend of Zelda. Legend of Zelda doesn't actually have puzzles, just as an FYI, guys. The core loop of Legend of Zelda is try stuff until it works.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
I won't argue with that part.
So Legend of Zelda 1 is probably the best example of all of this, in that like it's kind of abusive in a way, and actually ends up being a grindy game, which like seems strange perhaps to some. But I'm not even talking about the grinding 250 rupees for the blue ring, which is optional actually. But there's these, basically what it is the bombs are a great example, because like the game never explicitly tells you that you can bomb walls. It's just something that you're just going to have to accidentally fall into. Same with burning trees, actually.
Yep.
And so what you're supposed to do is once you have that magic moment of bombing a wall, if it ever happens to you at all, because, internet being not quite a thing for most people back when the game was released.
And if you didn't have the Nintendo Power, then,
Well, that's a topic in and of itself, because I'm starting to get more and more of the opinion that games were designed to be really super obtuse back then to sell you Nintendo Power. But anyway, the idea here is that once you had that magic moment of blowing up in the wall, now you have to put a bomb on every single space of wall in the overworld and the underworld. You have to, like, once you realize that you can burn trees, you have to burn every single tree in range. And there's all these hindrances in front of you trying to do that. Like, you can only burn one tree per screen with the blue candle. Uh-huh. You have to grind for bombs, and so, like, there's just all this, like, trial and error busy work that the game is putting you through. And nobody seems to decide that this is a big deal or not.
Well, I think, honestly, the thing about that is you can boil almost any game, any adventure game, down to that exact thing of the idea that it's all doors and keys. I had a good bud of mine tell me that he didn't play any Capcom game ever because it was always find key, open door, find key, open door, find
that's
key,
not
open door.
That's not the same thing, because what that is just, it is pathway markers, where the rest of the game is actually, the game, Resident Evil is a game about shooting things, and the keys and the doors are arbitrary. They don't matter all that much.
Then let's take the idea behind Legend of Zelda. If you're saying the whole point behind the game, the entire point behind the game is acquiring the keys and opening the doors.
But it's the presentation of the keys and the doors that is
doesn't matter how they're
important here.
presented.
No, yes, it does, because like the way that they're presented is not conducive to you actually being able to open these doors with keys. Like, it doesn't tell you that you can do any of that. I've read through the American manual. I did a text dump. I looked. There's nowhere in the game does it tell you can use the tree, that you can use the thing to the candle to burn down trees, even though it's required to get into level 8.
Yeah, true.
So it's super obtuse for no reason, and there's all these like secrets in the game, and like, so here's your mission of like, burning every single tree in the whole game, and then you come down into like, oh, I found a secret, I'm gonna go down to the thing, oh, pay me for the door repair fee. You were doing what the game wanted you to do, and then it punished you for no reason.
Here's the thing. To take my side of this, I have to agree at least with some parts of this article where when Legend of Zelda came out...
We haven't even discussed the article yet.
I know, but the point is that I'm getting here is that my counter to your argument of it's super obtuse and all these other problems, that, compared to other games at the time, it was not nearly as obtuse. It wasn't nearly as difficult or as time-consuming as you're making it out to be.
Oh, it was slightly less crappy than the stuff around it.
Okay, listen, though. I mean, the fact is that one of the reasons why people look back at Legend of Zelda so fondly is because, well, for one thing, the people who were playing games before Legend of Zelda had to deal with all this stuff, and this was like the one shining example of a way that a game could be more fun without being as ridiculously punishing. I mean, like, take some of the adventure games that were out at the time, like King's Quest. The fact, like, if you did not gather every tiny little thing in the game that had animation sickness as you walked onto a screen, just in case you would have to drop the grapes into a bucket, which would then weigh something down because, that's intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they never tell you to do that sort of thing. And the fact that that was the norm at the time. These were things where, and the trial and error of that game was, oh, you tried it, you failed, you died, start over. Whereas Legend of Zelda, the fact that you had the ability to do the trial and error, I mean, sure, it could feel grindy, but wouldn't have been worse if you used the blue candle on the screen. You just can't use it on that screen anymore for the rest of the game. Or, worse, you used the blue candle on the screen. Oh, it was the wrong screen. You died, start the game over.
So what your point right now is, because the game was not worse than it is, it justifies the creative direction that they took with it.
I'd say that the creative direction they took with it was on course for the time. It was groundbreaking for when it came out. I mean, I'm not saying that Legend of Zelda, the original, or even some of the ones that have come out after the fact, are like pinnacles of how all games should be designed, or whether they're even that, I mean, obviously the newer ones aren't very original because they're kind of operating on the same style, or at least the same formula that they've used the entire time.
I'm not concerned with their originality. I think that the entire model is flawed from the get-go.
I really don't think it is.
Because how did we decide to fix Legend of Zelda? Because obviously it's super grindy and oh my god, my favorite part is the entrance to level 7.
Okay,
which was that's try crap until it works to the utmost, because you go there and so there's the spring, right? Mm-hmm. And there's no fairy there, and so there is a guy that says there are secrets where fairies don't live. So if 6-year-old you can put that together and decide that, oh, there's not a fairy here where there normally would be, which is not completely unreasonable. So you are included in, okay, there is something here. But so now, what is the gameplay here? Well, there's these 4 bushes, and you can conveniently try to burn those, but that doesn't work. So I mean, that's kind of a red herring. Fortunately, by this time we've gotten the red candle, so you can burn all 4 bushes at once.
Sure.
Oh no, we can't because it's in level 7.
Right.
So you're guaranteed to have to leave the screen 4 times. Conveniently in the back, there's some rocks to push, there's some places to bomb, and so and maybe you have enough bombs, maybe you don't, so you go grind some more for that. And now you're just trying crap. You've never been presented with a problem like this, and you have no context for what you're supposed to do. So now you're oh man, can I sail across it with my raft? But there's no dock. Maybe I can use my ladder as a dock. Maybe I can use this spell book and read it, and maybe something will happen with that. Maybe if I swing my sword and fire arrows everywhere,
and you go until you use
and
the
you
whistle.
Finally use the whistle. Which, interestingly, you don't want to use the whistle because you know that the whistle takes you away from where you from where you are right now, which is the opposite of what you want. So it's the most counterintuitive thing in the whole game, and it just represents the design of just try crap until it works, and then feel awesome about yourself for doing guess and check forever.
And I guess, when it comes to that, I mean, people qualify that sort of thing as a puzzle. It qualified, I mean, the fact that there wasn't a punishment for doing it wrong, except for the fact that, you do it wrong, you go grind for more bombs, you shoot arrows into the air until you're out and have to go get more arrows, or what have you. I mean, the idea that it was considered a puzzle that, okay, you show up and there is a problem, you have what you need to do to fix this problem, now you just need to figure out what it is in your inventory that will solve this issue.
But the puzzle has a well-designed puzzle has a completely different structure than just guess. There's typically context, and there are moving parts there are elements in a puzzle that you can usually manipulate, or at least gives you some context as to what it is that you're supposed to do. And then there is this elation at the end of, I have unraveled this mental pathway.
Okay, but here's the question
that the developer of the puzzle wanted me to explore.
But here's the question then: if what you're saying is, if you can solve one of those puzzles by trying every single possible outcome, isn't that the same? I mean, if the whole point behind that is that I can just try everything until something works. Oh, obviously I can solve every puzzle that way.
And that's also a thing. The thing is, it doesn't feel the same way when you just like you go through all the permutations of the orientation of the puzzle and solve it by accident. That feels completely different from when you actually have that moment of clarity that you do what you think will work and it does. So the thing is that the difference here is that there's no possible way for Legend of Zelda to provide you with the moment of clarity.
Okay, but to be perfectly honest, again, I'm going to go back to the point where when it came out, this was still fairly groundbreaking ways of dealing with this, because every game prior to it, I mean, if you're just going to say, well, it was just better than the crap that are around it, sure. Maybe that's one of the reasons why people still hail it as a good game.
But see, this is what we did, was we took the thematic elements, we took the exploration, we took like this feeling of like going all over the place, and like some of the legitimately perhaps cool and interesting and fun parts of the game, but we weren't able to extract what it was we liked about the game. So what we did was we decided, the whole game is perfect, and like there's nothing wrong with it at all.
No.
And but that's what we we kept doing.
What we?
No, that's what Nintendo kept making, and we kept loving. Because we convinced ourselves that, like, oh man, this whole guess and check and like find the key by just guessing,
except for
is
the
what
fact
we
that
like.
they did change that up in the later games. For example, later on in the games, like for example, Link to the Past, areas that you can bomb or areas that you can deal with are marked. They're there
so that's our fix then. And so now what we have is a different kind of door with a different kind of key that is completely obvious, that like doesn't even approach trying to be a puzzle in any way.
Okay, no, here's your problem then. Okay, if you're viewing those as those are puzzles, well, they're crap puzzles. Well, okay, would you rather? Okay, how would you have this? I mean, obviously it's like, well, just take bombs out of the game then, because if you're saying,
actually.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Okay, bombs are still used as other things. You can kill enemies with bombs. They are still considered a weapon. They have other uses.
But you typically don't do it because you have a limited number of them, and you never know when you're going to need them.
But the idea, though, is that you're coming down to the point of when they have these things included in the game, when they whether they included bombs in later games as a thematic element, just to have Zelda has bombs, so we have bombs in the game. But like, you're pissed off that you have these, you have to bomb every wall just in case. Well, okay, now you don't have to bomb every wall. Well, now they're so easily marked that they're just another door. It's
well, here's the thing: is like the whole mechanic is so flawed. I think that bombs need to go, because it's the same as the weights in La Mulana. Like basically, you're grinding for weights. And like you need them, and it's completely obvious when you need them.
But the point is that the bombs are so easily accessible by just hey, look, the infinitely spawning monsters will eventually drop a bomb. You're not having to go and grind for hours and hours, or even start game over.
But why grind at all?
Okay, so if we're saying like, okay, you want to take bombs out of the game. Okay, let's take bombs out. So but how about arrows? How about it? Are we going to take arrows out of the game too? Well, we might as well, because, arrows are used as keys in several of the Legend of Zelda games. And,
yes, they are.
Okay, so there's that. Oh, they can be used against enemies. But, you have a finite amount, so you don't want to use them unless you come up against something that you're going to need.
And it's just more efficient to use your sword, almost all the time.
So there you go.
The sword is also a key, wherein the monsters are the lock.
Okay, so there you go. So let's take away the sword, the bombs, the arrows. Obviously, hook shot. Why have I don't know, any item in his entire inventory whatsoever?
Because none of them are used effectively, and nowhere is this like demonstrated better than in the fifth palace in A Link to the Past. So this is our third game now. Like
sure.
we're kind of getting this down. We're in the Super Nintendo era, and so now what we're doing is like there's a room right above where the boss room is. And so this is the last puzzle of like the third to last dungeon in the game. We're getting to the home stretch. So you've had some time, you've had ample time to figure out the mechanics of how all this stuff works.
Sure.
So how do we access the boss room of level 5? Well, what we do is you enter the room, and right away it's like there's all these creatures that you can kill with your sword. And then because it's a top-down view, you see all these things right away. There are pots, really skulls, but there are pots that you pick up, and then you discard them. You just they're in your way, you pick them up, and you get rid of them. Then there are some statues that you pull out, and you're not supposed to put them anywhere. They're just in your way. You pull them out, and you go past them. And then there are those mole things. You've seen these mole things forever. You know that when you see a mole thing, you get out your hammer and you hammer them down, and they're just in your way, and you discard them. And then after that is this giant block that you know by experience you're supposed to pick it up with the level 2 power glove or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then, and most mysteriously of all, most like mystifyingly to me as far as the design goes, like once you pick up the big block, you can't move. Or you can't put it down somewhere.
You just have to throw it.
You throw it and it breaks. It's there to be discarded. Mm-hmm. And so after that, you pick it up, and underneath it is a hole that you fall down, and you know by this point that that holes are there to fall down, and it takes you to the boss room. So it puts these 4 obstacles that you've done countless times in the game. You've proven that you know how they work. Why is it asking them of you again? It's marking what you have to do. It's put the round peg in the round hole for the 30,000th time.
Sure.
Why?
To be honest, when it comes to that sort of thing, that's, I think, one of my few gripes with the Legend of Zelda series. You know, I will at least side with you on the fact that when they're asking you to do the same action many, many times with the same results and in these cases especially, they're not asking you to do them under different circumstances either. You know, there aren't enemies constantly attacking you while you're lifting this block. I mean, sure, there are times that happens in the game, but like, you know...
Well, then you should kill them.
You know, but in this kind of case, if you're right outside that boss room, there's nothing stopping you from lifting block, moving thing, falling down hole. Obviously, these things are there. So
it just seems so lazy. It's like they didn't have any inspiration for like how to actually design something clever and like... And when you think about it, I feel like the mechanics of all of the items in Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, or almost any Zelda game, don't really lend themselves all that well to actual puzzles that like would require you to really think. Like the most that is ever asked of you, I feel, is probably throwing bombs over the top of like walls that you can't pass to hit crystal switches. And like that's maybe like the most clever thing that the game does. You know, like it's not like you can use the hook shot to do all sorts of cool maneuvers. Like it's like, you know, you see that there's a pit and you see there's something you can hook onto. So you use the hook shot to go over there because that's what you do.
So the idea behind the Legend of Zelda game, you know, and one thing that they've always talked about is that exploration is probably one of the bigger things in the Zelda games. You know, that you have acquired this item. Now go back to all these places and try, you know, open that door that you saw, or like, oh, well, you know, that kind of sounds like, you know, Metroid, you know. Oh, you found a door you can't open. Oh, now you have the item to open it. Go back and open the door. Oh, you've gotten this new thing, a power-up, an item, or whatever. You know, it's like going around in Link to the Past, finding heart containers. Some of the most difficult things to find in that game are heart containers because you have to backtrack so often to find them because, you know, you happen to pass by a wall that you noticed had like, oh, I need to blow that open. Well, I don't have bombs yet, so I'm just going to move on, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then later on, you're like, oh man, I forgot about that wall. And you go back and get that wall. It's not so much that the wall was supposed to be a challenge. The wall was basically a, hey, there's something behind here, but you can't get it yet. It's a tease. And that's fine. And I don't see that, you know, being like lazy game design in this kind of case.
What? Like, how does that even like equate to any sort of like satisfying gameplay at all? It's basically just busy work. You're just like, you know, oh man, write down the approximate coordinates as to where you are.
In which case, every adventure game ever made is effectively busy work. I mean, any game that will give you a power-up or an item that allows you to access an area is busy work in that case. I mean, and we can even take it into first-person shooters then. Oh, I can't get to this place because I haven't gotten this gun yet. Or I can't open this thing because I haven't found this. Effectively, every game then boils down to busy work. The thing that really made Legend of Zelda fun, or at least, you know, decently fun in that kind of game, is that it really, you know, being an isometric game, there aren't at the time it came out. Again, I'm going to go ahead and go in the Wayback Machine here. At the time it came out, there weren't a ton of like top-down adventure games that, you know, that were as quote unquote complex as say Legend of Zelda. I mean, remember Talk Adventure, you know, like on the old computers, you know, the Commodore, you know, with the duck. You know, find key, open door, whatever. The point is that when you're looking at Legend of Zelda, you know, if you're going to say the entire game boils down to find key, open door, well, finding the key, you may be forced into that. You may like, oh, well, I have to try everything until I get this one thing. Well, the trying is the game. the getting to there, the fighting the monsters, the adventure and the exploration of finding where you're going next, and I went into this cave and this guy says, oh hey, don't forget to go to this stone.
Oh well, okay. Well then, Legend of Zelda is a game for 6-year-olds because 6-year-olds play perfection, and and they even perfection is more difficult than Legend of Zelda because there's a time element of putting the proper thing in the proper hole.
So, okay, but then I'm going to go ahead and come out and say that again, that every single adventure game out there is the same.
It's not because
you can boil it down to the same exact thing. Every Metroidvania game out there is Symphony of the Night. There you go.
Probably.
A lot of people love that game.
Well, yeah.
Well, you just can't get to this next place until you get double jump. Oh, well, then I just have to go every single place I can go until I find double jump. Oh, look, I've acquired it. Okay. Now I go every single place I can go until I find another door I can't get by.
I know, and that's also legit. I wasn't defending Symphony of the Night either. Because I think that Symphony of the Night was kind of an unfortunate direction for Castlevania Go, given what it was. But one thing that Castlevania Symphony of the Night has over Legend of Zelda is that there isn't a whole lot of guesswork as to the power ups that you get. There isn't all this guesswork of what do I do with this?
No, of course you can, but you can go to every. They don't tell you when a wall can be broken down. These walls aren't marked. I just have to hit every single wall in the game.
Yes, you
just
do.
in case one of them is going to fall apart.
And that's kind of a little bit of silliness there. That was really just a call out to hidden roasted dungeon wall chicken in the walls.
Yeah, I suppose. But the point.
So I thought it was just kind of careless of them. Really,
I think that deriding Legend of Zelda for what it was, and saying, well, everything can be boiled down to acquire key, open door, and that every single thing in the game is just a door to be opened. Like, for example, monsters are just moving doors that are opened with the sword.
It's not really even they are in that it's required for certain shuttered doors to open. You kill all enemies, and it's not particularly difficult. I mean, there's not a whole lot of really intense strategy going on.
I think though that the gameplay and playing the game and the if you're saying that the entire game was about get key open door, I think that's taking away from just how fun the game is to play. I mean, if you're saying, well, it's not a very difficult game, well, difficulty is going to be different for everyone. I've seen people fail on Legend of Zelda many times.
I guess what I'm saying though is that there must be some other element in Legend of Zelda that is fun, other than just bashing your face against the door with different colored hats. There must be something else there. So let's explore that, and let's make the game really pure and and embrace the part of the game that we actually find fun, instead of just assuming that the whole game is flawless, like I hear so many people say.
And I think that I don't think that people are going to say that the Zelda. Okay, people will say that the Zelda games are flawless. I don't believe that they're looking at it from a game design point of view, saying that every single design decision made in this game was made without.
Well, what they'll do is they'll sit around and they'll invent justifications in their head for literally every single mechanic, and it implies so many weird motivations for what you want out of your game, it makes sense that you can bomb walls open, and and that's the justification for the mechanic.
But okay, but look at it this way: take the later Zelda games as they went on. We go from Legend of Zelda, and your big gripe was, it's trial and error and grind. You have to try every single thing. Well, okay, they took away the trial and error a little bit. They made it so not only was there text and people telling you where to go, almost very specifically sometimes, you can't open this without this. Get this thing and open that. Mm-hmm. Or go to this spot and bomb this spot to do this thing. And they made it fairly clear that these were things you're going to do. Well, now they just trivialized it. Okay.
Well, it is trivial, though. I mean, neither one of them is legit because, again, it comes down to here's these arbitrary barriers that you've proven that you can put the round hole in the round peg in the round hole, and just continues to ask that of you for the entirety of the game.
But here's a problem.
There must be something else.
Okay, what you're saying now is take away the peg and take away the hole, and now where's your game?
What I'm saying, I'm
What's
not saying,
wrong with liking putting the peg in a hole?
Because that implies that you haven't advanced since you were 6 years old.
Not necessarily. I mean, if I go back and play Legend of Zelda, it's not because I enjoy the difficulty or that it's mentally taxing or even that the gameplay is very difficult. Some people go back and play it because it's gasp enjoyable.
Okay, there's that word again. But what does that mean? What's the
we have gone over this. You cannot quantify enjoyment.
I think you can.
We've talked about this many times. There's many things that you don't enjoy that I do. Many things that our listeners would enjoy that other listeners don't.
I think we've talked about this indirectly a lot. And like we talked about it. We talked about ocean. We talk about it when we talk about the. I had it in my head a second ago. When we talk about like basically it's a topic we haven't talked about yet. Remember we're going to be covering a talk about the developer for
Game Developer Conference,
a GDC video where the developer of Amnesia: Dark Descent talks about like how to make storytelling in games and horror games specifically, and he talks about some really scientific things about what it is that makes certain experiences enjoyable and certain ones disconnected.
Sure.
So, like, I think it's perfectly capable for us to quantify the enjoyable part of the things that we play.
I still think that it's still an amorphous enough thing that you can't quantify every single enjoyment bit and have it apply to all the people. I mean, obviously, Legend of Zelda isn't as enjoyable to you as it is to, say, me. And we might enjoy it for different reasons. I mean, I'm not saying that you hate the game or that you're not going to play it ever again. I mean, but it's something where, if that is what you don't enjoy about the game, well, okay.
What I'm saying is that, like, there is the little enjoyable bit of Legend of Zelda is probably handled way more purely and way better in some other game what I'm saying is that let's eliminate the unnecessary elements that are distracting from our game.
But here's the thing, like, one of the things, I went back and just recently played Link to the Past again. One of the things I really enjoyed about it is not only the fact that I got, that it was Zelda. I mean, the things about Zelda that were familiar to me. They had bombs, they had arrows. I know where these things are used. I know how they are used. And, for example, what happens when you bomb open a wall? And not in the first one, but in later ones. What happens immediately upon you bombing the wall?
Yes, you get a little noise.
You get a noise, then it's like, do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Okay, cool. That right there, I mean,
It's designed to give you a little bit of a thrill. That's the manipulation of Legend of Zelda, is that it's rewarding you either for guessing or for
taking anything away from you for doing so.
It's condescending. That's what it is.
It's not condescending. That is a ridiculous statement. The game is not putting you down and saying how you need a little bit of a kick, otherwise you won't enjoy the game as much. Well,
that's what game developers talk about all the time. I'm sure that's the reason why they put it in, just to give you a sense of like you found something.
That's the discovery noise. It's the discovery noise. That's the entire point behind
it. The point of it is for it to be a reward. It's there to be a little mental thrill.
And what is wrong with them rewarding you for doing something via gameplay? I mean, especially when it's something that is happening so often as to get you bored. I mean, if you're so bored with having to, I had to bomb another wall, at least at that point you can say, well, I had to bomb another wall, but I got the noise, and I'm okay with that.
I have a better idea. Let's design something that you don't find boring.
Okay, fine. And then, again, what I'm saying here is then if you're positing that Legend of Zelda, okay, it's the most damaging game to hit because it caused all these other games to take the same route, and then, it started a flood of, all the games are playing this.
Let me actually quantify that, because I feel like I haven't quite covered that, why it's so damaging. It basically, prior to Legend of Zelda, a lot of what you got in the NES era is a lot of really abstract games.
Games that required 50-page rulebooks to even understand the basic concepts.
Perhaps, but what I mean by abstract is not necessarily obtuse, but games that didn't try to simulate the experience of being the hero. Certainly there was theming elements that were similar to that, but you had these games that were very they had very marked challenges, and they had these these tough platform and puzzle type of things.
It became just twitch reflex skill, because at that point that's much better.
We have a word for this where we call games arcadey, and and arcadey games are good at basically giving you pursuit of mastery. Do this thing and either rise above this bar or rise as high as you can, like a score-based game. And so a game like Legend of Zelda kind of flips that around and says, you know what, we're going to have you do busy work, and then the idea of you pretending to be a hero will distract you from the busy work that is really just kind of a waste of your time. And then because
gross oversimplification for a completion-based game. Which, again, if you want to talk about time wasters, talk about any number of the games that were precursor to it that would waste your time in infinitely worse ways. And
example,
King's Quest.
Okay,
go to every screen, try every item on every single thing that does anything.
And that's no better.
Okay, but the thing is, that was, King's Quest were some of the more popular games because they were, at the time considered to be, these were really well-made games.
Oh, King's Quest is a niche game at best today. Legend of Zelda is one of those enduring classics that everybody is afraid to touch.
No, they're not, obviously. I mean, people are going to be talking about these things, and there's obviously going to be detractors everywhere you go. I mean, obviously you exist. I mean, you're a detractor on anything fun and nostalgic. But the idea that, it kind of sounds like you're it's like, everyone's talking really well about this game, so I'm going to put it down because It has nothing to do with being a hipster. It has everything to do with seeing the game for what it actually is. But then you have to apply that. I mean, if you're applying that to every single adventure game out there, well, maybe people are playing it for sheer enjoyment of playing an adventure game. Like, the gameplay itself is what they enjoy.
Again, let's make it a more pure adventure game that doesn't waste your time, that gives you the things that you want. I don't deny that Legend of Zelda that gives you nothing that you want. But I don't think that we have a good understanding of what it is that we want out of Zelda.
You seem to have this habit of saying that we want to find the one thing about the game you like and make a game entirely about that, and you're going to enjoy it more than this game.
No, I'm saying
the game as a whole does well. You're saying, I didn't enjoy the busy work. Well, maybe some people don't view it as busy work. Maybe they say that is part of the adventure.
And so if you want to just say that, like, oh my goodness, like all we have to do is just say, well, some people like that, then we can't advance the conversation at all.
I would say the vast majority of people who enjoy The Legend of Zelda for what it is, maybe not all of them are going to sit here and say, oh yeah, I enjoyed every single aspect of it 100%, nothing ever made me annoyed, or, I really enjoyed having to go back to all these other places to try every single item on every single door.
I think there are people that rationalize it.
Oh yeah, I won't doubt that for a moment. But the fact is that, demonizing The Legend of Zelda and saying that it is, not only is it not the pinnacle of gaming that these niche groups say that it is, but it is by far one of the worst games to be made. I think that's taking it to the other extreme. I think that there's that happy middle ground where the people who are playing the game they're just happy because the rest of the game is distracting them from the busy work. Well, again, if you're talking about, do you think that they would enjoy a pure adventure game that doesn't have any of that stuff? I'm not willing to say that they would. I'm saying that maybe...
How do you know before we make it? Because right now, you're just kind of saying, Legend of Zelda is...
Journey. Journey is an exploration adventure game that has absolutely no items, inventory, or anything like that.
Okay,
and you know what?
People love Journey.
Oh, yeah, but not every single person who likes Legend of Zelda likes Journey. But wouldn't they? Because if that's what they like about Legend of Zelda, that's what they'd like about Journey, right?
It depends.
It depends
on the person.
Does it? Oh my God! If it depends on the person, then maybe people like different things.
Oh my goodness, you are getting really excited. I think we're going to have to call the verses off early today.
Well, we're actually over time.
We are a little bit over time, so we are going to go back to Saving the World for another week. Because I need to be saved from Mark.
Apparently.
So between now and then, contact us with questions, comments, opinions, shout-outs, give show topics, link news articles, or sound off on this week's Inquisition, which, in case you forgot, is...
What's your proudest achievement, and what is it called?
Send responses to the email at gamingdisquisition@gmail.com.
Maybe you can reach us on Facebook, facebook.com/thegamingdisquisition, or on the Google+.
Get a hold of us on Twitter at DisquisitorSam.
At DisquisitorMark.
On Twitter.
Tweet.
So, thanks to shout-outs this week. Shout out to Ethan, who is one of my D&D buddies, but also has really been getting into Dark Souls in a big way. Holy crap. He actually even hasn't beaten the game yet, but he's made 5 characters. He has WoW syndrome.
Huh.
But yeah, so we've been doing a lot of co-op together, and he's just been having a blast exploring all the different little aspects of the nuances of the system. So it's been a lot of fun, being able to play mentor for that. So shout out to you, Ethan.
Yeah, hey, thanks to Steven and Habadakis for sending us your links this week. Really appreciate it. And definite thanks to Steve for giving us a main topic.
And thanks to Thunderthroin for his track Flugel Rock.
Yeah, thanks to Luke Barden for your track Banananaz.
And as always, thanks to all of our musical artist friends for letting us use your work on the show. Your work helps make our show what it is. We will be back 7 days from today to do this crazy thing all over again. Until then, game on, internets.